Good morning. Today is Sunday, August 10th, 2025, and this is the weekly Bitcoin price forecast, looking at where Bitcoin went in the last week and where Bitcoin could potentially go in the future. So this is the last week was the first full week of August, and overall it was pretty good. You saw a small drop initially, but after that it's just been an absolute rebound. A lot of that hinging on the fact that now 401ks have been open to crypto, which opens up potentially trillions of dollars to this market. At minimum, billions and billions, but um, that is a huge boom to the overall industry, and something that we'll talk about a little bit later. It was an executive order that was placed a little bit later this week, but as always, we'll just talk about what's going on the charts with technicals. So we had a run up to 122, 123 at the beginning of January, and then it was just kind of a downtrend through the end of the month, going into August, and now we are at the top of this monthly chart. So no real wicks above, but you see that we have traced down, and then we're now coming back and just continuing on to the upside. Really, I mean, at this point, you see that we're in a huge uptrend, right? So we had this big run up from December. Well, what was this? This was September of last year, so almost a year ago. It's been almost a year that we've been in a huge uptrend, really. So you had this bull flag that really ranged for several months at a time, and then it just took off. You had the dip with tariffs. This was February and March, and then the actual dip was around here with tariffs. So you had a downtrend, which makes sense because again, we talk about this imbalance right here, right? So you had this huge candle run up, and then it stopped right here, and then it tried to go up a little bit more, but eventually the candle does come in to fill this gap, and we see it did that almost perfectly down to this line, down to 175. I'm sorry, down to about 75,000. And you saw it again here. So like this, you had a big run up here, and price hit 111, but it left initially a gap right here, and then it came down to fill that. So this little green area hasn't fully been filled, but not all gaps get 100% filled. So we see like that happened here too. So you had a gap here that got filled. These gaps did not get filled, but and these will not get filled. There's no way we're going back down to 30,000. That is a pipe dream, and I would abandon all hope there. But you see that we're now very much so on the upswing, and I think that will continue for quite some time. Okay, so the weekly chart. This is, I mean, we see this like a very beautiful uptrend here, but over the last couple of weeks, we had, like I said, we had this big move at the beginning of January. I'm sorry, the beginning of July, and then you had kind of a ranging period to where it just slanted down for a little bit. But we see now that we're pushing back up to get to new highs and turn on the drawings. I'll do that in a second. You'll see that this candle right here, even though it's even with all these, it is broken out of the bull flag that it's been in. Which will lead it to kind of hitting up these upper highs that we're going to see in a second here with this channel. So you have this overall channel here, this green one that I'm looking at, and it just really bounces up and down. And we're about at the point now where we see this current weekly candle is peaking above this bull flag that's facing downwards, and then it just moves on to the upside, right? From then on out, really the next move is up to about 125, 130 or so. And we'll hit this probably range here for a second and then just, continue, maybe break out, retest, and then continue on. But for right now, there's just so much heavy support below this price that I just don't see it really going back down any further than this. This bull flag has done a good job of protecting. Same here. And same here. So like the downside here has just been, it's been a strong area of support. You also have, as I always talk about, this escape velocity line that has marked the tops of various cycles. The short-term holder realized price week after week continues to move up and up and up. And then, you have this 100,000 psychological level, which I don't know if we will reach that in any type of near term, but we will see. We'll see how price ends up shaking out. But I do believe that 150 before the end of the year is likely at this point. I mean, 2026 starts somewhere right here, so we could see, especially if they start cutting rates in September, as is to be projected right now. They're saying there's about like a 90% chance that that ends up happening. I think Polymarket was basing that somewhere around 75%. And we may look at that in a bit. That we end up cutting rates. So I think that will end up adding some extra liquidity to the market, which typically tends to move price to the upside. On the daily chart, we had this uptrend, and we've been in this bull flag for a while. So it was a range for quite some time. You were in this box, and then it dropped out of the box. You drop out of the box, you hit this 50 moving average, which is the white line, and you hit the bottom of this this bull flag channel. So you had, like, you know, 1 tap, 2 tap, 3 tap, 4 tap, and then you end up going up. So that's good to see that this is actually real, and that is a strongly held channel. You get above the channel, you come back down, and then now we are just pushing on to the upside. So this is 18,000 that we're at now. So it's moved from 12,000 to 18,000 in the span of about a week. So from Sunday the 3rd to, yeah, exactly a week. So this has been an overall really good week, as we saw on the weekly chart for it. So you saw this up move. It came back down, dropped down to the 50 moving average, and test that one more time. And then ended up just continuing on to go there. So good to see, good to see. And what I was talking about earlier is, like, we're now above this channel. We're above this channel now to where the next stop is going to be, you know, this 125, 127 range. So if it just goes straight up, you're still at 127. But it may, you know, slant a little bit and kind of go into the end of the month. So 128 you could be looking at. But this is a very good move that we're seeing. So you should see scandals pretty soon, like this and this, moving up into a new kind of paradigm as we kind of hit this top here. 4 hour, not too much to see. So you got back, it was below the moving averages. All the moving averages started at the beginning of this week, and you see it just continually slice through. And now we have actually made a cross of, this is the 50 moving average and the 100 moving average, golden cross there. Really big move on Saturday of all days. So this was a move for that's a $2,000 move on a Saturday. So that's not something you see often. Where did Friday end? Friday ended right here on the futures market. So Friday on the futures market ended right here. So I think on Sunday, starting into the week, you could see a pullback down to about 16K, 116K. And then from there, that will be, you'll fill that CME gap, that Chicago Mercantile Exchange gap, and then you could just see it continue on to go to the upside. So I think that's reasonable. Before we just continue moving on to what I was talking about earlier was filling those gaps. And again, if the market closed here, but Bitcoin runs 24/7, the spot Bitcoin market is right here, but the futures market is right here. So it's going to be playing catch up to continue coming down and then moving on to the upside. So let's take a look here. What's going on in the news? In the news last week, there was not really any news stories. And when I say news stories, it's really just the economic releases. There's a calendar that you can look way ahead into the future and see exactly when these things are going to come out. But right now, I'm looking at CPI. The inflation numbers, they are projecting a 0.1% increase, so from 2.7 to 2.8. Realistically, that's, we say an increase, but overall, we've just been kind of dancing in this area for quite some time. So from 2.4, 2.7, so on and so forth. It's really just been a range for over a year when we look at interest rates. So from July 23 over to here, and yeah, that's pretty much it for news. You have things like core PPI; those are not I wouldn't call those huge movers and shakers, but inflation that definitely is. So we see even from 2020, we had COVID, huge drop off in inflation, almost went deflationary. And then you just saw this major run up with inflation because, again, they printed so much money in March of 2020. And when you print a whole bunch of money, inflation generally tends to increase. Now, there are moves that you can make to slow that, but if you're adding more money to the market and not increasing your actual output with GDP or actual units of products or services output, well, then you're going to increase inflation. So if they turn those money printers on, I assume that we probably will see some type of inflationary measures in the money again. But who knows? We'll just have to see when we get there. So core retail sales, none of this other stuff is important. So we'll just continue moving on. The big thing that I saw this week was Harvard. So there's a couple big things outside of the 401k thing. So Harvard, they announced that they have already bought. It was in one of their releases, $116 million worth of Bitcoin. So number one institution in America, and this is what I talk about. You have pension funds, you have retirement funds, you have endowment funds, you have 401ks, you have all these Roth IRAs in places where money is locked up and has not had access to Bitcoin yet. So this is really the beginning of the dams opening. So it's like the floodgates are opening, and now you have like these big funds with billions and billions of dollars who are able to now invest in alternative assets like Bitcoin and stablecoins and cryptocurrency. Right now it's just Bitcoin, I think, but as time goes by, I think you will see them branch out into other things too. So that's just I look at the velocity and the flow of capital. The other big thing is like Trump's executive order allows Americans to invest 401k retirement savings into Bitcoin and crypto. So Americans hold $9 trillion in 401k savings. So think about the market cap of Bitcoin right now. So that's 9 trillion. Bitcoin market cap. So Bitcoin's market cap right now is $2 trillion. It's roughly $2 trillion. Yeah, so the market cap, $2.3 trillion. So it's really not, you're not going to get all 9 trillion, right? But 9 trillion, that's billion, more zeros. 9 trillion times, let's say 5%. That is 450 billion. That's 450 billion that you could have end up in these alternative assets like crypto and Bitcoin and whatnot, just from 401ks. And that's what Americans hold in the 401ks. But again, like I said, you also have these endowment funds, you have retirement funds, you have corporations. There's just so much money on the sidelines that is not currently invested in Bitcoin. And at this point, that just means that there's just so much upside. There's so much upside for the people who are willing to get in now, who are willing to quote unquote take the risk. Personally, I don't really think Bitcoin is nearly as risky as people think at this point. It's almost a guarantee in my mind, just because again, you have the political endorsement, you have the social endorsement, you have just every type of endorsement that you could see for an asset in its early stages. You're seeing it now. So this is the digital transformation that we're looking at. But overall, y'all, I think that's about it. The big thing this week was the 401k executive order that I'm pretty confident it has actually been signed. But now you just have that access to trillions of dollars in 401ks. And I think we're going to see a lot of companies start to follow suit because, quite frankly, they don't really have a choice if they want to be survivors in this coming era of new monetary and financial. It's a new financial paradigm. It really is. So I think that's it. Not too much else to talk about. So this has been Chris Talks Crypto. Check out the crypto-based resources on christalkscrypto.com, and I will see y'all on the moon. Take care. Bye-bye.